bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. How you doing? Today is Wednesday, September 4th, 2019. 246 days into the new year, just 119 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro. Back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? How you doing? All right. Tonight we have very special guest Emery Smith is here. We're going to have a very, what's the word? A productive, open conversation tonight. We're going to do all of that. Emery will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. And then tomorrow night is Fader Night. Open lines all night long. I know we haven't had a Fader Night in a month. You know, lots of different reasons why I was in the hospital, and then this happened, and my back, and my neck, and my leg, and I fell apart momentarily. And then we had to move guests around, and then we had to occupy a couple of Fader nights, and there's probably a holiday or two in there as well. But for whatever the reasons are, we haven't had a Fader night in a month. So tomorrow night, open lines all night long. I know I threatened you with an AMA. No, I'm not going to do that. We'll do that next week. But tomorrow night, open lines. And it's my favorite night of the week, and I haven't been able to do that for a month. Hard to believe. But tomorrow night's Fader night, open lines all night long. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Simple. At JChurchRadio. Tonight it's Emery. In 1990, he became active duty in the United States Air Force, was stationed at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. From there, he went on to surgical tech training at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. And then on to England Air Force Base in the 23rd Tactical Fighter Wing located in Alexandria, Louisiana. Finally, Emery was transferred to Kirkland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where he worked on and off base at UNM Hospital as a surgical assistant and as a paramedic. He was certified in surgical apprenticeship and also worked as a hazmat instructor, EMT, terrorist negotiation coordinator, flight medic specialist, surgical technologist, expert marksman, chemical warfare specialist, biotech warfare specialist, and led decon response units. During this time, Emery developed the first military industrial laboratory tissue database complex that was used for a joint civilian-military venture in sharing tissue sample data of varying origins collected from classified areas. Working at the laboratories became a milestone for him in his pursuit of the truth, and today he openly talks about his experience working at these facilities. His website is emerysmith.net, and I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Mr. Emery Smith. Emery, good evening. How are you, man?
Oh, great, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on the show again. It's always a pleasure.
It's great to hear your voice. I hope all is well. And actually, you know what, Emery, I'm going to start here. Let's hit the ground running. All right, let's go. Let's go here first. It never before in the history of this planet has UFOs and the subject of ETs been in the mainstream media like it is today. These are exciting times, aren't they?
Absolutely, Jimmy. I mean, especially since I came forward, I've seen a jump in the transition of the government, trying to get together and, start making a plan of what are we going to tell the people. And they're slowly breaking the civilians in by showing, footage that's blurry, reporting from the media saying, people are seeing this. The media is picking up on extraterrestrial vehicles now and reporting them. And every now and then things slip through. I know there's a lot more going on that the world doesn't really know about. It's a inner celestial highway up there in our atmosphere. And every now and then there, are some craft that do come down, and there's also craft up there. But, so I'm really excited to see more and more of this disclosure, if you would, happening at a more rapid rate.
If I can ask you, Emery, to take out your headset and microphone, and let's go direct into the phone.
You got it.
Okay. And I'm only saying that because it just, I want the audience to hear every word, right? Every word. And I think that this last 2 years, that the world in general, whether it's mainstream media or just the average person on the street, is okay talking about UFOs, where in the past it was totally taboo, and it was difficult for anybody to talk about it without having somebody react strangely, right?
No, it hasn't. Even, as a matter of fact, look what the military's doing, making it public, saying, hey, you guys are now allowed to report unidentified flying objects or whatever they're going to be calling them. And I know that's not 100% true. They're not going to really get that information to the public, as much as a civilian has a lot better access of getting something out to the media, for sure, because they're always looking for a story in these small towns.
I wanted to, for clarification, for total transparency, in the past on this program, I had mentioned 3,000 alien autopsies that you had performed, and was I in error with that data that was given to me? I need to understand. This has been brought up over and over again from members of this community, where they're just like 3,000 alien bodies, and I have to question what I was saying. Can you help? What was it? 3,000 alien bodies?
No, there's not three. Number one, I've never used the word 3,000 alien autopsies, because all I was doing, I've done about 3,000 or more tissue samples off of tissues. Now, these beings are not all extraterrestrial. Some are hybrid. Some are actually grown there. I've come to find out later on. So, it's not, number one, it's not 3,000 bodies. I know this is 3,000 tissue samples, where in one day you can get 10 to 15 samples from one being. or a part of the being, or an organ of that being, and you might revisit that same being maybe 6 months down the road to get more samples.
Mm-hmm.
So these are samples. This is not actual full body autopsies, and a lot of these species were mostly human in form. Just so that the public knows, it's not like 3,000 different extraterrestrial species. It was definitely not like that, and I know that somehow got out through some colleagues. I think they were, just talking about me. I think the pop culture got involved and just said, this guy is, the guy who does the chop shop, and a lot of negativity behind it, which I don't like being called a whistleblower or anything like that. I'm just an insider and just here to tell the story, what happened to my life.
All right. Now, moving on from that, because I need a clarification for myself.
Sure,
if I ever talk about this in the future, I need to be absolutely accurate with that. I thank you for answering. You recently got back. One of my favorite things to do is to go out and sky watch and going out with a group of people or friends and looking to the skies and checking things out. And I was watching some of your stuff. I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this. That was going on up at Shasta, and you also did a Q&A up there too as well. What did you guys? Who was there? What did you do up at Shasta?
Oh yeah. Well, we are filming, our docuseries, The Beings, and you guys are going to see that in the future. And also, we're doing a lot of Patreon stuff that's going to be starting up here in the next month. And what we did is I was invited to the Shambhala Monastery there in Kellysville, California. And that's where Buddha Maitreya has his beautiful compound out there. Such a nice setup with the pyramid and the dome homes and the underground catacombs. They do a lot of amazing regenerative healing. So I first did a stop there for about 2 days and did some filming there with them, some interviews, and learned their technologies of healing and regenerative medicine. I wanted to know what they were doing. Also, if I could help them get some new technology in there. And it was such a pleasant place to be. The whole place is built on a mound of obsidian. So they actually, they had to dig down into the obsidian to make this facility. So from there, I was invited to speak at the I Am School in Shasta, California. I just love Shasta. I go there once a year at least. And the I Am School is just a beautiful integrative consciousness and science together. And the woman I was in contact with, Erica, had set up this teaching day where I could come in and teach all the kids. Ages were, I think, from 13 to 18. And it was so received so well. They had really great questions. And I did this all on volunteer because I just love children. I wanted to go out and teach at the schools. So I was asked to come out there. I did it. And in turn, they turned around and said, hey, why don't we set up a Q&A for you so you can at least make some money back to pay for your team, because I go with a big team, as you know, everywhere I go. And I said, well, that'd be fantastic. So with just within a week of just, getting the word out there, 70 people showed up at the Q&A. It was so beautiful at the bottom of the Shasta ski resort there. And it was outside, and the sun was setting, and Shasta was behind me as I was speaking, and Shastina, I won't leave her out. And it was just a beautiful setting. And the people there had some really good conscious questions, and the children were there as well. And I made the children memorize, like when we go out on our expeditions with our core team, I have everyone memorize about 300 questions before going out and doing our contact work. Because once you meet an extraterrestrial, face to face, the information is less than a second. Those questions are all answered. So I had these students just memorize 5 questions. Like, what would you ask a person from another civilization? And they had some amazing questions, really, really conscious questions, and very scientific too.
Do you remember any of? Do you remember any of the questions that they had?
Yeah, a lot of them were like, why are you here? What technology can you share with us to help us clean up the planet? That was my favorite one. Where are you from? What is it like there? A lot of questions about, how, where are they from? Why are you here? What's the agenda? Can you please share some technology to help us clean the planet up? Can you teach us telepathy? A lot of educational, very mature type of questions that are just working with kids. The questions are so different than the adults. It's just night and day, because they're more about, creating. They're more about helping the planet, helping each other. While adults are more like, give me your weapons. How did you make, this craft? What's the propulsion unit on this craft? It's just a different dynamic. You can see the sincerity in the children. And of course, adults too are very sincere. But it's just a different aspect that I've been noticing when teaching children compared to the adults. So we had the adults and children came out that night for the Q&A. And then after the Q&A, I decided, it was such a beautiful night, I decided to stay and do a little contact work. And basically within about 7 minutes into it, I think they told me on film here, we started having all this lovely activity, in the sky. And, these are alleged meteorites and other phenomena. And we, of course, we did a small meditation that evening and did an Om, and just try to break in this group of 70 people, holding hands and being of the same vibratory frequency, so we can all have the same experience. Because, if you get a couple people in there that are afraid, they're not going to come too close and, let you kick the tires on the craft there. But everyone got to see something. I brought my night vision goggle sets and passed them around, and people were brought up to a whole new world of the universe, because you can see so much more stars with that, so many more craft. And out of the 70 people, believe it or not, two of them were the only two that they said actually experienced contact, like going out trying to make contact. So we had, a good 68 people there for their very first time making contact. And, we stayed there, I think, another hour and a half, 2 hours after that, and just had a miraculous time. And they're going to be posting those videos and pictures up in the near future on my website.
What did you guys end up seeing?
Well, we saw, number one, we saw a lot of discs. There was a gold disc and a blue disc that fluxed in and fluxed out. Many people saw it. We also had very slow-moving types of meteors, kind of look like not comets, but when we have really close meteor showers where it streaks across the whole sky. Well, these would go really slow, leaving this aura of light behind it, which I know we did have captured on film, I do believe, and a lot of people were taking pictures as well, but they didn't have the right equipment for it, and we didn't come packed to have the special equipment. We just had all the night vision goggles and lasers and contact stuff, such as the electromagnetic tri-field meter, and the storm trackers that we normally use on these expeditions. But the people were just so enthralled that no one wanted to go home. People were starting to go to their cars and bring out blankets and lay down. And it was just a really joyful night that ended so peacefully and lovely with a signaling. At the end of the night, we always say, if there's anything else you'd like to show us or appear, if it's safe and effective for you. And after about a minute, we had a bunch of these strobe lights going off right above us in the zenith.
Isn't it? Now, you had 68 people that were experiencing this for the first time, and I have been in that atmosphere. It is so much fun to have people see this for the first time, because I remember the first time I went out on a sky watch, and I know how it changed me. And I totally enjoy watching somebody else experience it for the first time. And if you had 68 people out there doing this for the first time, how much fun can one person have? It must have been great.
And plus, not only that, we had the children there, which, it's sad, but we're going to start doing this for the children, because the children are our future, and that's where we really need to focus the education. The only reason you and I are going to be around, Jimmy, is because of the children today. So we really got to take care of them and educate them and steer them in, the right direction, and allow them, of course, to make their own free will choice. But give them the right science, the right facts, the right history, and the right educational consciousness teachings, so they can make, a conscious decision and as they grow and change. And so being out there, not only with the adults, but with, a third of them are children of various ages, and seeing how receptive they were. And I remember there was a smaller child right next to me, probably about thigh high, and he was always holding on to my leg and following me around that night. And he said he was going to help me bring them in. He said something to that fact, not quote unquote, but something about he's going to help me. And I just started almost crying. I was like, this guy's great. Look at this. Everyone's looking up and around and being aware and really trying to vector these guys then. And that was just, a couple of hours of work, which usually takes, 5 to 6 days of people, really getting on the same level and frequency and vibration to make contact. So it happened really quickly. So I was blessed to be surrounded by a bunch of lovely people who really got into it and really had a great time.
Well, why do you think it is that, because if you go back to when you and I were children, and if we had the chance to talk to an extraterrestrial, the last thing that we would think about is the planet or humanity or feeding or anything like that. We would want to know, can you teleport? We would ask those questions, which are the same questions that we would ask today as adults. And I totally get where you're coming from. Why do you think the children today are so different from when you and I were younger?
I'm glad you asked that, because I've been looking into this and studying this psychology behind it, and it really has to do with who they're surrounded by. So it's up to the parents and family members that are raising that child to educate them about not only great things about Earth, but also the negative aspects. So I do believe that these children were really aware about the threat that Earth is under and about the destruction we're doing to it. And that was really educational for me to see that they really have done their homework. And of course, the IM school teaches about all this as well. So they're getting instead of being in a public school where you're kind of programmed a certain way and that's all there is for the curriculum, this school allows the students to kind of veer off on their own, journey and their own thoughts, in a really nice space where they can be creative and talk out loud about it without being chastised. So I think that has a lot to do with it, is the parents and the teachers that are out there, especially, that can slip things in, is really important, because they're the ones that are making the difference for our future.
I need you to position yourself wherever you're at to get some better reception. And so just you can go ahead and do that. But, get some more bars for me, Emery. Give me some more bars. And this docu-series that you're out there shooting right now, The Beings, is this something that we can talk about?
Yeah, we haven't released the trailer yet. That will be coming out. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Yeah, so The Beings, we've been filming this now for over 2 years. We still have another year to go. We will be visiting places and collecting DNA from unknown origin tissue samples. And me and Miss Sky will be traveling the planet, and you guys will be coming with us. So that'll be quite the journey, so you guys can see what we actually do in the field and how we collect data and how we bring it back to, the universities to get tested. And it's just a really great adventure story, and it's life. It's like a real deal. It's just like what we do when we go on our expeditions, and it is it can be very scary sometimes, and being in different countries and working with the political government. We got access to a lot of archaeological sites which have never been shown before, and also there's a lot of different mummies that are out there that are coming out. So I think we have a great lineup as far as where we're going to be taking everyone on the journey with us, with our GoPros and our film crew, to show you, hey, this is how we actually find something. This is how we found it. These are the connections that it takes to get into these countries, get into these archaeological sites with all the certificates and licensing you need to do this, and also the favors you have to do, which we'll get into later. But yeah, so it's going to be a really exciting, adventure-packed type of, on-site, plus bringing in other, knowledgeable people and scientists and physicians that have worked with us in the past to get their take on it as well.
How do you choose a university, a school, or a laboratory to test these samples? Are they blind samples? What do you tell them, where the stuff is coming from?
That's awesome. What we do, Jimmy, is just like I did with the Atacama bean. We went over to Barcelona. I collected the sample. I took it back to Stanford. Dr. Gary Nolan. We picked Gary Nolan because he was the most upcoming geneticist out there. And of course, I don't exist. Greer doesn't exist. We can't be those people because we're bringing these specimens back. So we decided, well, let's, of course, pick the best of the best to say, hey, what is this? And that's kind of what we did. We gave him, said, can you please tell us, what this is? It came from, a possible mummy. And we didn't say anything else. And then we sent then we said, hey, let's send all the CAT scans and MRIs and X-rays to the world's leading pediatric bone specialist who wrote the book literally on, pediatric bone, orthopedic surgery. And that's Dr. Lockman. And he, came back and wrote his report. And Gary's initial report, showed that it was not that much human. So that's what happened. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of replicate that and show you guys what it takes. So we pick people that are very influential, that have a tremendous academic background. And we say, hey, test this. But I'm doing a different twist on it because I'm not just testing it at one place, which I think was a bad idea because, things can happen, mistakes can happen. In the military-industrial complex, what we would do is, there would be, maybe I would take a sample of something from a tissue sample from this piece of tissue, and maybe 3 others would also take samples that day of the same tissue, and it would go out to maybe 5 or 6 different testing facilities. So then they would compare data. So what I'm going to do is when I get these tissue samples, there will be 3, unknown to each other facilities and universities that are qualified to test these samples, and also include the scientific community so everyone can see the data as we're processing it. So there's no secrets going on or shenanigans to show the public this is how we did it. And we have 3 different test results. Let's go through all 3 of those right now with the head physician and see, if they match up.
The series, we have to wait for another year. How much of it is shot and in the can?
Actually, more than half. So I believe they might be putting, I don't know for sure, but I was talking to my director and producer, and they said they might be releasing some trailers and maybe some tidbits in the near future before it gets launched next year. So they're also thinking about maybe, working with different networks to have more of like 30-minute clips and then bring it all together. Or there might be also 3 1-hour, like in a docuseries, we're going to have like maybe 3 1-hour clips. But that's still up in the air, but the footage is already amazing and outstanding. And the most adventure we're going to have is this next 6 to 7 months. We're going to be going to a couple of really amazing places, such as Mexico and Africa, to uncover some pretty phenomenal things and to approve or disapprove and try to find out, what is this? What is this artifact? What is the DNA of this piece of tissue? And really get into the nuts and bolts and make it also very educational and bringing the viewer with us so they really believe they're right there next to our side.
That's pretty exciting stuff. And we need to take a break, and we'll do that right here. Our guest tonight is Emery Smith. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Emery on Twitter, EmerySmith33. Of course, the links are right up in the sandbox. And we'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Emery Smith. Let's get straight back to it. And Emery, you and I, you had mentioned to me a couple of weeks ago, in a very cryptic way. You said, I'm in Washington, D.C., and you had sent me a picture from your hotel window. Looked like one of the monuments out there, and it was pretty cool. But that's all that I got. What were you doing in Washington, D.C.?
Well, what I can say is that I was over there initially to help a daughter of a VIP that was ill. But as soon as I arrived at D.C., everyone kind of knew I was there. And I got to go sit in on a meeting with some political figures and large corporations. And they were talking about extraterrestrial agendas of, how are we going to bring this to fruition? How are we going to explain to the public? And there was two other people there with similar classifications that I had back in the day. And they were asking us to, help them do this project, but I just didn't feel right with it because of the people that were there and the corporations involved. And, I just didn't want to be a puppeteer for anyone or sign my life away for anything. So I turned that down, and that's about all I can say about that, so I won't get in trouble.
They wanted to, push disclosure forward and use you to help facilitate it?
Correct. And and it's not just me. There were other figures there that attended that they were trying to, talk to see if we were up for something like that.
And was it TTSA?
No, it wasn't. Actually, I told a couple of my friends and family members, but no, it wasn't.
Interesting. And when you say corporations, you don't have to say specifically, but are we talking
I'll just say aerospace, communications, and energy. So,
like Verizon big, like Google big, or you know what I mean?
Military industrial complex big.
Right, and the bigger ones in the MIA, I should say, or the MIC.
Correct.
Very interesting. And in the end, you declined. Was it because, did you feel a little dirty about what they were proposing?
Yeah, it just seemed a little sketchy, to be honest. And the plan wasn't completely formulated, the briefing, and I just wasn't impressed with, walking into something and not knowing the end plan. Like, what was the end game? What was the end message? And one thing I will say, and I won't talk anymore, is they wanted to do this over 5 years, and I was trying to convince them to do it in 1 year.
And for what agenda? I mean, to inform the public, or so they could make money?
Well, that was not clear. I mean, I'm sure they'll use this to make money. I'm sure, a lot of technology will come out because of this agenda. Like, for instance, we'll say, for example, if a craft crashes somewhere all of a sudden and we were to retrieve it and it had technology in there that boosted our technology, our tech here on the planet, I think there would be a lot of money making in that.
The interest in doing this now, I would find the timing suspect. We have everything that is happening right now on all fronts, and these conversations are happening, whether it's with the senator or with the Navy or President Trump or television and mass media. It seems like an opportunistic type of proposal that they couldn't do this before, but now people are talking about it, so maybe it's a safe zone. Am I very far off from thinking like that?
No, you're dead on, Jimmy, because what's happening is, all these little cube box satellites are getting put up that pretty much any civilian now with $500,000 can afford one. And what that means is there's going to be a lot of more eyes in the sky, where you can control your own satellite and be anywhere in the world in 3 minutes. That means zooming in on places with high-powered cameras and special cameras with special filters to divulge information. So I believe that a lot of disclosure not only happens through Gaia, Earth, because of the melting polar caps and what that's going to show, but I also believe a lot of amateur people with cameras and satellite cameras and telescopes are going to be picking up more and more activity, and it's going to force really force the governments to really respond, because there's going to be too much information out there that people are going to be bringing in and discussing, like what are these pyramids down here in Antarctica? What is this thing sticking out of the ice? You're not going to be able to hide that for much longer with their technology.
Did you see the pictures that I posted earlier this week with the coordinates of the face in Antarctica?
Yes.
Is that part of what you're talking about? I want your take on that. On what you feel that you saw. It no matter what, if it's natural, if it's man-made, none of that matters. To me, it's a face. You don't have to use your imagination here, or interpret, or force yourself to see a face. It is clearly a face. I don't know how it got there. What was your first impressions when you saw those images?
I thought that was an intentional either disinfo or real info. I'm 50-50. I play devil's advocate even with myself when I see something, because there's always a reason. They really didn't want us to see it. They wouldn't show it. So this might be part of that information, getting us programmed. Hey, let's get ready. There might be some life out there. There are still a few people on the planet that do not, believe this. And there's also many people on the planet that don't have access to know about this, and the indigenous tribes around the planet. So I think they're trying to break this in slowly by, every now and then, one of the jet fighters will pick something up on their cameras, or, now we have this face down in Antarctica. So you see, they slowly bring things in, but no one answers it. The government doesn't answer about this. So that's stuff, you probably know more about it than I do. I don't follow it. I look at it once and then I go on to the next.
Is this something that you would cover, like, say, in Cosmic Disclosure?
Yeah, this would be something we would put on, definitely on one of our Gaia programs. Cosmic would be great for that. I know the producers are really working diligently to get some really good scientists and archaeologists on the show that have firsthand experience. But, it is a very sensitive arena and subject because of all that's involved, that entails for this big cover-up that they've been doing for, 50, 60, 70, 80 years now down there. So I think, this is going to be that opportunity for us to see, how the governments are going to respond to this, especially the scientific community needs to step it up and find out, what is this, what really is this, or is this just something that was put there? Did they make this just temporarily so it melts and then we don't see it anymore? There's many different ways we could play this agenda with this face.
I wanted to ask you about a couple of other things that have happened recently, and one of them was the leaked Admiral Wilson, Dr. Eric Davis document set. There was 15 pages there. Did you have a chance to look at those documents?
Yeah, actually, I read the first 7. I haven't read the last 7. I was going to do that today, but it seems legitimate. The way it's written, and of course, I was looking for whose signatures are on there and the stamps of what organizations were, military organizations were, and what 3-letter agencies were involved with this, and it looked pretty authentic to me.
Well, on the last page, on page 15,
I'll bring it up.
On page 15, it says, and I can just paraphrase here, but you know what? I'll just pull it up. And the way that this is presented, it says that and this is a conversation going down between Eric Davis and Rear Admiral Thomas Wilson, and the comment that was there says that UFOs are real, abductions are not. Now that's a pretty crazy statement to make, and with something like that, what do you make of it? Do you think that the abduction phenomena is not real, or maybe suggesting that it's not ET? Maybe these are government military abductions, or that they're staged maybe by the CIA?
Yeah, that's what he's saying. I mean, that's what he's saying in this letter. You know, I always get beat up for this because a lot of the abductees, always challenge me on this, but I'm not saying that abductions don't happen. I'm saying they happen. I just don't believe they're all extraterrestrial abductions. I believe most of these abductions are staged abductions where military is involved for security. They don't know what's going on. And the private military corporations come in and, stage these abductions. I believe that what he's saying here, and I'm, have it right in front of me, that the abductions are not real. It's because he obviously has some sort of inside information. And he might not know all the information of real abductions, but he's definitely stating that quote unquote, alien abductions are not real, which would lead us to believe that he knows something about the staged abductions. So I'm going with that for sure on this one.
And what do you think, what is your opinion outside of this document about alien abductions where we have, direct contact reported by literally thousands, if not tens of thousands of people on the record, and there's probably millions out there that have had contact that haven't talked about it yet. But this is a huge group of people that are going to stand up and go, no, they are real. So what do we do with that? You know what I mean? What do we do with the millions out there that have had these experiences, and then suddenly the government's position is that this isn't real? So are they suggesting that everybody has a mental illness of some kind? This is some kind of mass memory, that's put out there. Or are they actually real alien abductions?
Well, I think what we need to first do is start categorizing abductions, because we have proof that there are staged abductions from military paperwork and from this letter, and also from many insiders. So we know that's happening. Now, what's the other agenda to that? Well, why do they do that? Why do they do stage abductions first? Let's talk about that. Because in order to get the agenda ready and to prep the world for, let's say, a fake alien invasion, as Ronald Von Braun said one time in his interviews, that there's going to be this fake alien invasion. Well, in order to do that, we first need to build fear into the majority of the population, or at least a very small percentage of it, using media, using these stage abductions. So they'll go down to, some small town or even a large town and stage an abduction right outside of town. And they'll gas the people, and those people will, not know what's going on, and the gas will knock them out. And then they could carry them and transport them and pull the car off the side of the road and, let's say, take them to a staging facility nearby. And as they're groggy waking up, have these beings there with big eyes and big bulging heads and colored in, green skin in surgical masks. And that's what they're going to remember. And they'll give us some more Versed, which makes you forget in surgery. Mm-hmm. And then, they wake up, only remembering half of what happened. And it was very terrifying. So then they'll go all the way to Zimbabwe, do the same thing there, same thing in Beijing, same thing in Cebu in the Philippines, same thing in Russia, same thing in Alaska. They'll go to all these places to do the exact same thing. And then wait a couple of years, and when these investigators are hired to go investigate this, they're like, oh my gosh, this guy in Fort Myers, Florida, had the same exact story as the guy in Johannesburg, which had the same exact story as the guy in Seoul. So it's like, wow. So these scientists, of course, they're doing their due diligence. These people are having memory recalls, some sort of abduction. How many of those are real abductions? I don't know the numbers. That's what I'm saying. There should be something put in place to really, narrow down what's happening to these people. So that's like one of the agendas. The other thing that they can do scientifically is they can, input, these thoughts in your head. They can, take your astral body out of your body when you're, not conscious, and give you these imprints, these bio imprints into the brain, and memories that you really think this happened. Now you're still at home, but you really believe you're somewhere else, and it's that real of technology that they have today in the classified projects to move your etheric fields and also imprint memories into your mind. And they do this. This has been proven, of course, in the projects with cloning, and also with some of the hybridization programs they have of taking consciousness from one being and putting it into another.
Now, the reason for doing that, would that be to cover up the sighting of some military black project aircraft that they want, some diversion on, and they don't want that disclosed, so they'll use UFOs or ETs as a cover story? Is that the reason for doing it?
Yeah, that's one of the cover-ups is when they do get busted with, like we didn't know about the F-119 for 20, 30 years later, and it was already being, built. So imagine what they have today, and people do spot these things, around the planet every now and then and get them on video. And of course, it's better to say, well, that triangle is definitely an extraterrestrial craft. It's just hovering there. We don't have that technology, because if we say, well, that's our secret weapon to control the planet, that wouldn't go over so well.
You mean the F-117?
I'm sorry, the F-117.
Yeah, I was going to say the F-119. That's
Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, that's super secret. And that, if that is going on, which for me, that terrifies me more than ETs coming to this planet, right? In that our government would do something like this to its own citizens, or any country on this planet that would.
Well, they've done it in the past, though. I mean, they've done experiments on us in the past. I mean, when we find out later on that they were poisoning us and our children. So, I mean, what's not to say it's still going on? We won't find out about it till 50 years down the road, and by then everyone's like, already forgot about what happened to those people.
Yeah, and MK Ultra, which was a real program, and Senator Frank Church of Idaho and his uncovering of that, and the ordering, by the CIA at that point, destroy all documents, right? And that order went out, and people are shredding stuff all across the country, probably around the world. Some documents survived. That's what made it to Congress and the Senate, and this program was revealed. And when people talk about MK Ultra today, it's more of a science fiction aspect, even a conspiratorial view of it, that it's made up like it's tinfoil hat. It was a real government program with thousands of people, ordinary citizens and college students, involved in it. This isn't a made-up fantasy, is it?
No, this is very real, and I definitely believe, in my opinion, that they are still doing things like this to innocent people. Collecting them for experiments, such as homeless people and people that would not be normally missed.
I remember this is about a year ago. I went through data, and I was sent a bunch of data about missing people around the world, right, every year.
Right.
Men, women, children, adults, it doesn't matter. And the amount in this modern day that we live in, where we have accountability and we have cell phones and we have GPS and we have real time access to just about everybody, certainly in a modern society, and the amount of people that absolutely just go missing, those numbers are unbelievable. Most people don't understand how many people actually go missing each year without a trace. The numbers.
And nobody talks about it.
No, they don't. They don't.
Well, why is that? That's what I don't.
Well,
it's such a huge number. I don't know the exact number now. I haven't checked on it in a year, but
yeah. The numbers are they're unbelievable. Now, what you would think that eventually they surface. Right, that the numbers start to right, and the numbers start to equalize themselves, and it's not millions of people; it's only 10,000 because they surface later and they're back, in society. That's not the case. They're gone. They vanish.
Yeah, that is something that really the public should start looking out for, and I think organizations need to start inquiring and investigating this phenomena, because and it's not just here in the United States, it's all around the world, especially in third world countries even more. And it's not just sex trafficking. These are people going missing, adults, older people, senior citizens. This is a plethora of different age groups that are just gone. And you can go online and search it, and you'll see all the faces there. It's overwhelming, to be honest.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to look at it that way because I'm 55 years old, and if I disappear tomorrow, I'm not abducted or kidnapped into a sex trafficking ring. That's the last.
Oh no, Jimmy.
That I can promise you.
There's a lot of fader knots out there who really want you bad.
But so we have to look at it that way. It's not just young, boys and girls. It's all across the board. And certainly sex trafficking has something to do with it, but it could be ET. It could be something else. And it could be, crazy time vortexes and all kinds of explanations out there. I don't know what they are, but the numbers are huge. And I went through it. I went through country by country. And it's not just a United States phenomenon. It's Canada, it's Australia, it's the United Kingdom, it's Spain, it's Germany, it's China, it's Russia. It goes on all around the world. Well, look, let's take a break right here. I need to get this out of the way. When we come back, we're going to jump into regenerative medicine and what is going on with all of your projects and recent research. It's a very complex and comprehensive issue, and we'll get a full explanation of all of it from Emery right after this short break. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Stay with us. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Emery Smith. And very, very interesting conversation so far. And Emery, a couple of things really quick before we move forward. I just got a text during the break from George Nori. And he's he's listening right now. So,
hey, George.
Yeah, hello, George. And he said, be sure to tell Emery I said hello. So I did that. And speaking of George and Gaia, he has his show Beyond Belief, and you've got Cosmic Disclosure. And I kind of danced over that really quick. I wanted to. Can I get secret stuff out of you? What's upcoming?
Sure.
Do you have? Can you talk about guests and things like that? I haven't had a chance.
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay, is that cool?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just take some heat for it later, but I think all the Fadernauts need to know what's coming up.
Right on.
I'll bear the heat on this one because we already did it. It's just not shown yet. So this is really inside information. Since I'm an insider, I think we should do this.
Yeah.
What we got coming up, the good thing is I have a show out there with Randy Weitenheimer. He's a new to the scene. You guys got to check him out. He's amazing. And I just got aired, I think, 2 shows with Randy Kramer. Now, there's a guy worth listening to for a little bit. He's got some really interesting, amazing stories of his 20M back and being on Mars. And there was like a lot of little correlation things he said that really sparked my interest. But a really nice guy. So we did some episodes with him. That's going to be, I think 2 have already aired. You know Randy.
Yep.
Jimmy?
Yes, I said yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and of course, I did Sergeant Clifford Stone in Roswell, and he showed me some amazing things, pieces of craft and also pieces of alleged craft, ET craft, and from the crash sites, and a lot of documentation, just a lot of brilliant stuff that he requested from the government. So we're going to be going through those files and talking about his experiences with extraterrestrial craft. And the other one is, of course, my favorite, my good buddy, David Adair, very well recognized aerospace guy. He was in the military, in the Air Force and Army. He's been on a lot of crash retrievals as well and has done just amazing things. He's just an amazing guy. So look forward to those 3 guys in the next coming seasons. You're going to we dive really deep. And, I'm switching to host now. Since there was an opening for that, and I got the blessings from David Wilcock to take that over. And so it's working as a nice transition, I think. I like being the host and being able to get into these insiders' heads and see, bring out this information, because you got to have a right person to really get, it's really scientific about it and really to extract the information. And it's kind of easy for me to do because, they have already done it to me. So it was a really neat transition. So look forward to that stuff. You can go to Gaia.com/Emery and sign up there. It's a nice setup.
The subjects that you cover, are you going to expand in other directions? You know what I mean? How are you going to push Cosmic forward and, quite frankly, not run out of material?
Well, the thing is getting more insiders, new insiders, and we're having, new people come up to us that they're vetting right now that we're trying to vet, because there's a lot of people that come forward, but we're trying to look for some documentation to go along with it. But you're going to see new people, new faces, like Randy Weitenheimer and Randy Kramer. I was kind of big on the scene. And there's others coming out. I can't mention their names, of course, yet. But it's going to be brilliant and lovely. It's a plethora of information and new sciences and new stories from these insiders that are pretty remarkable. And I think the audience is really going to be engaged.
Yeah, these are exciting times, and I look forward to it. You do what? 8 episodes, 4 episodes a month? How does that work?
Yeah, well, what happens is, it's possible for us to shoot when someone flies in, like David there. We'll usually have 2 days of shooting. We might shoot 4 to 6 episodes a day. It depends. After, let's say we get 2 days, 12 episodes. That's really comes out to about 8 episodes, because after all the editing and maybe if one show is not that great or they don't like it, they might scrub it. So we always shoot a lot. The good thing is everything that we've shot so far has been used. Nothing has been thrown out. But it's possible for me to do, 3 interviews in 1 month. That just happened recently. And we were flying around and also doing it here at Gaia headquarters, the filming of, people flying in, me interviewing them. So it was, that's kind of the protocol of how that unfolds.
Well,
so,
let me,
I could actually,
yeah, let me,
these episodes are already shot. By the time you see them, they could be 3 to 6 months out, like 6 months ago. So it's funny when people see me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you look so different than TV." And I'm just saying, well, that's because you're watching pictures of me 6 months ago, when I was 300 pounds.
Well, and how did you make the transition from guest to host? Hosting's a whole nother thing where you are now asking questions instead of answering them. It's a lot more difficult than what most people think it is.
Yes, it is. It's extremely difficult, and I definitely needed some pointers. And by looking at my other colleagues and taking some classes in this, this is a kind of a different area for me. So I really, really had to embrace it and look at myself on TV and go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I have my arms crossed," or "I can't believe I did this," and just being really humble about it and getting really good constructive criticism from the team at Gaia. They're amazing for helping me, through this transition. And they just approached me and said, "Would you mind doing this?" And I said, "Sure," because there was an opening there, and they were trying to find someone that lives in Boulder that could be there whenever they want. And since I'm already here, it was just a good shoe-in, for that to happen.
Well, excited for the new stuff, and Gaia is easy to find. I don't have the links up at Jimmy Church Radio, but Gaia, I think it's just Gaia.com now.
Yeah, Gaia.com/Emery. Yep.
Right on. Let's get into regenerative medicine, and I want to start first with a definition. What is regenerative medicine?
Well, regenerative medicine is any type of therapy or medicine or anything that has clinically shown that it helps regenerate cellular tissue. And at the pinpoint of this, of course, is a lot to do with biologics and stem cells and platelet-rich plasma on the cellular level. But they are coming out with different types of proteins and amino acids that are recombinant, which means they're synthetic and also concentrated from other animals and from other humans that can be concentrated, sterilized, and then utilized on the body to help promote cellular function and help regenerate cells. And because your cells in your body, they're all different. The muscle cell is different than the skin. That's different than your heart. That's different than your lung tissue. So they have now really fine-tuned this therapy with many, many beautiful types of therapies out there that are autologous, which means it comes from your own body. Of course, I was one of the pioneers in that. One of my inventions and patents is a concentrated cell separator that concentrates stem cells from your bone marrow and stem cells from your blood. Also, stromal vascular fractionated stem cells from your fat around your belly button. And when we concentrate these, and this is all done at the patient's bedside within an hour, we can concentrate your own body's healing factors and spin them down in a centrifuge and isolate those factors and then put it in a place of your body that needs it the most. Now, it might be systemically, it might be a full body stem cell infusion, or it might be a localized platelet-rich plasma treatment where you're injecting into the joint. There's many different aspects that we can go with this.
Where does the knowledge for this come from? I assume you're not a medical doctor, right? I understand your military training in these fields, but this seems to be a very complex issue, and there are those out there that are going to say, "Man, he's not a doctor," right? There's no formal training here. Where does the knowledge for all of this come from?
Well, I mean, I do have over 360 college credit hours from the Air Force, so that's more than a PhD. We do have, of course, the training I received in the Air Force, was not even available in any university for the stuff I was doing. But the basics of biology and surgical technology and being in the emergency medicine field, I have all those certificates and all those titles, and I still have, my credit hours, but I'd never applied it when I got out of the military, which I could have, and got a couple degrees right off the bat, because I was going to be a device manufacturer. Now, that means I'm going to create things that help people heal and help cure them. And I knew by working with surgeons for that long that it's not a good idea for a surgeon to tell another surgeon, hey, you're just not doing that right. You should use my device. It's better. And what you've been doing is wrong your whole life. That would not go over so well. But being a clinical practitioner who works under the license of a surgeon, you can get away with a lot more. So that's what I was doing. And I was actually one of the first CME CEU accredited organizations to hold the Florida International Platelet Gel and Stem Cell Symposium. So physicians actually would come to get credit hours from me, even though I'm not a medical doctor. I had medical doctors on my team, and I spoke for most of the time during a 3-day course in Melbourne, Florida at the Space Coast Aeromedical Institute every quarter. So doctors would fly all around the world to come in and also receive a certificate of training from me to do, this harvesting of blood and fat and bone marrow, so they could, take it to their clinics and help, heal and cure people.
It sounds almost too good to be true. Like this could actually change the world and change lifestyles and create hope. Is that too extreme? Am I going too far with this?
We have. Ever since I developed my device, I know total knee and hip replacement surgery has gone down by 50%. So that says a lot about the products. And the way I was smooth about it was instead of telling the doctor, oh, you're doing it wrong, it's more like, hey, I got this new device. It may do this, it may do that. Why don't you use it and let me know, your results? And then when they would come back and was like, oh my goodness, I didn't have to do this knee surgery because we rebuilt the articular cartilage just by using these injections. I said, my goodness, that sounds fantastic. Can you write that up in a white paper for me? So I'm pulling the same thing I did with, how we, picked Gary Nolan, how we picked Dr. Lockman and all these people, is getting the right, people on board to, so when they say something, it is legitimate. It's backed up with white papers. They did their own studies. So it's not me saying my products are the best. It's the world saying Emery's products are the best. And that's what I just wanted. So I accomplished that mission, and it's helping people all around the world right now. And there's 5 or 6 other companies out there doing. I don't not own that company anymore, by the way. However, the product is still out there, and it's called the Genesis system, and it concentrates many different types of cells in the body. And there's other systems out there as well that do similar things, but of course mine's the best.
You mentioned earlier your patent. Those are your words. How many patents do you have? How many inventions? And are these researchable? Because you know how it is, right?
Yeah,
there's no documents here.
Yes. Right. No, anyone can type in Emery Smith and the patent office, and you guys can see all my stuff. But the one I'm known for, of course, is the cell separator concentrating kit, and also the spray, the autologous spray device, which we use to mix a type of it's called autologous thrombin, 10% calcium chloride mixed with 5,000 units of bovine thrombin powder. Sometimes we use this sprayer device to spray and mix the biologics with medications to help activate platelets and fibrinogen so it clots. And if you go to my website, emerysmith.net, there is a video there of me treating a snake bite, king cobra snake bite on David Weathers, which shows that process of how I did it. And you can also type in on Google PRP snake bite, platelet-rich plasma snake bite, and it should come up. And there's a nice video there done by Discovery Channel on me, Discovery Health, and a few other channels.
What's the reason what's the reason for spraying this snake bite? What happened?
Well, what happened to this poor guy? I was volunteering at the Octagon Wildlife Sanctuary in Florida, down here in Sarasota, Fort Myers area, DeSoto County, I think. And he there's this big animal sanctuary with, big wild cats, and, just think of every zoo animal possible. And I was doing volunteer work there, doing wound care on a lot of the animals. And the zoo manager, David Weathers, also known as the Cobra Kid, who's he's a venomous snake handler. So he's used to doing this his whole life and wrestling alligators. He's a great guy. And he came up to me one day and he's like, "Hey, Em, that stuff you put on the tigers, you think maybe you could put it on my wound?" And I said, "Oh, well, what happened?" And, Dave was there in his wife beater, working on the farm there. And he lifts up his wife beater there and he had this makeshift bandage on and he pulled it off. And he's like, "Oh, I got bit by a cobra a few days ago." And when he pulled the bandage off, Jimmy, it was horrific. And you can see the video too. It's on, like I said, look up that thing. And it was just all black and necrotic. And I said, "David," I said, "you're jaundiced looking. You have a systemic infection here. You need to go to the doctor right now or you might die tonight. I mean, you're feverish." And I said, "I cannot put a live tissue graft that I make with your own blood onto this wound because your wound is completely dead. There's no dead cells for the graft to adhere to and start the, upregulation of the cell receptor sites so the cells can, replicate." So I said, "Go to the hospital, get that thing all debrided out, debride it and just, clean it up, get on antibiotics." I said, "I'm not touching you until you, get that thing cleaned out professionally by a surgeon." And so the next thing he did was, he says, "Okay, how about tomorrow at noon?" I said, "Well, stop by and maybe we can, help you out." And so the next day he came by and he looked great. And we, put him on the table and we drew his blood and spun it down. And we noticed when we, took the bandage off, I was like, "Oh my goodness, it's completely cleaned up and the edges were all, cut away." It was really professionally done. You could see down to his intestines because the venom was like acid and then it ate, through his skin and his subcutaneous layer and his fascia and his muscle. And I said, "Well, Dave, you should be in the hospital still and getting care." And they said, they said, "I got to leave this wound open. It won't heal for, 3 to 9 months." And I said, hopefully, this is a very long time ago. I said, hopefully at the beginning stages here with all the results we've been having, this is still when we were testing everything, that we were able to do this for him, that we took his blood and I started, taking the blood, and if we spin it down and harvest the platelets and plasma, we have to activate it, and that's what that sprayer is for. And you'll see a similar device on the video, an earlier prototype. So when you push these two syringes, it's like the stuff you buy at Home Depot when you're mixing the glues together to activate them. It's the same thing. We're mixing this medication, which is thrombin, made from a cow. We have thrombin in our own bloodstream that activates, called tissue thromboplastin. And when the blood hits the air, your blood clots, and it's because of this tissue thromboplastin. So we were able to control how we want this autologous tissue graft to clot with this medication, and also adding an anticoagulant to it, so it would, so that the blood would not coagulate until we added the thrombin and the calcium. So as I'm injecting this and infusing this into this open wound, I said, "Dave, this is fantastic. This looks great." I said, "Who's your surgeon?" Because I know all the docs pretty much within a few hundred square miles. And he just looked at me and he said, "Oh my gosh." And I said, "Oh my gosh, David." He's like, "Hey man, I'm sorry. I just smoked a fatty and got my razor out and got some scissors and I just went at it. And I just was like, oh my goodness, we're all going to go to jail for, treating this kid who basically, was supposed to go get the proper medical attention first." And I said, "Well, what'd you do?" He's like, "Well, I just went in, I saw these antibiotics for the tigers and I just, injected myself and I feel great." And here I am about to have a heart attack. And he grabs my arm and he says, "Emery, it's all right, man. Don't worry about it." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because I used alcohol." And then I just was like, oh my goodness. And so I thought that was funny, but at the same time, I was going to go run and hide. And it was maybe I don't know, 3 or 4 days later, he called me. It was probably maybe 5 days. It was like 5 days later. He called me. He says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, nothing." I said, "How are you doing?" He says, "I feel great." He's like, "Do you have time to go outside?" And I said, "Why?" He goes, CNN, ABC, CBS, and everyone's there. They want to interview you. I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because my wound is completely healed, and everyone heard about my cobra bite because they actually have the cobra bite video. He was being filmed when he got bit by the cobra." So that little video kind of launched me into this regenerative medicine as a pioneer, because the doctors said that this would take months to heal, and I healed the wound skin to skin in 7 days with no infection.
Yeah, the video, I've got it up on Twitter, so everybody can go and check that out. It's on Discovery Health. And I'm just going to warn everybody, the open wound and everything is
pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. And I want to roll this video for just 1 second. You can hear it. Yeah, there you are. How old are you? Yeah, that's healed. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. How old are you in this video?
Wow. That was probably, I would have to guess, let me see. Let's say 29.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is, man. That's a pretty gnarly. Okay, I'm going to stop it now. I know you can hear it. The audience can't hear it.
It's pretty shocking, but it's also very educational. So
now the ideas for this, where do they come from?
Well, I had a mixture, of course, working not only in surgery but in the labs, and before they started getting into certain classification of AFSCs, my AFSC was pretty broad. So I worked in all the surgical units, all the clinics and the laboratories, and would rotate out of the emergency room. So I was doing all these different things because, I had always accepted any type of education they would give me. Hey, Smith, you want to sign up for this course? Yeah. Hey, Smith, you want to do this? Yeah. I was always yes, yes, yes. And I was just a sponge for information, also getting certificates of training and, any courses I could take to help further my career. And I believe, after also being in the projects and seeing how they were regenerating bodies and seeing that we had the power within us, to do this, I had a small opportunity after I got out with a couple of gentlemen to, disembark on this and try to develop something where we can heal ourselves from within. And I already knew that, we had that in our bodies already. The thing was, how do you concentrate the body's own healing factors into like an injection or a pill? And that's what I was trying to figure out. And we figured it out that, just by concentrating your own natural occurring growth factors, which are found in your platelets, that stimulates stem cells into replicating. So it was the platelet-rich plasma, then platelet-pure plasma, and then right from there we went into stem cells. That happened over, 15, 20 years.
I would think that Big Pharma doesn't want this out. I mean, that's the obvious statement to make here. But
yeah, without getting into it, they basically did not approve us for many, many times that we tried to get FDA 510K approval. And it was just because we were wording it wrong. We didn't really realize that, me not being a savvy business owner at that age, didn't really realize, it's all how you word it with the FDA. And, we could do 1,000 patients on quadriplegics with stem cells and send it in. It'll get rejected. They'll be like, you need more. And then I'm being sarcastic, but, Celebrex can get approved with 20 patients. And I'm just being sarcastic. But it's like, since they don't want any cures, they don't want to know what it does. They want to know what it does, which means, okay, this must be really bland. It concentrates cells. Instead of saying it concentrates these cells, these proteins, this, and we've done all these studies and spent all this money, they're like, no, it just gets rejected. So it is kind of hitting your head against the wall. Luckily, I got in before all these new licensing and laws came down on the FDA. So myself and another company was the catalyst for them to really pay attention to regenerative medicine, that's autologous biologics, because what the FDA wants to do now and you could look this up, is they want to license your blood. So when it leaves the body, they're saying, well, once it leaves the body and you're going to change it or process it, that now it falls under, they're trying to make it look like it's a pharmaceutical, but they can't because it's your own blood. So it's like they're trying to patent your own blood.
Well, I need to take a break right here, but I would think, well, okay, we donate blood all of the time. We don't own that blood anymore. But if the blood is bad or if there's disease in it or there's something, then it does come back to you, right? You are held responsible for it. Is that a way for them to get around it? Right. Once you release it, it's no longer yours, and we can do with it what we want.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's a process.
Right.
You can't. It's just a process. Everyone has blood. All we're doing is concentrating your own cells and putting it back into you. That's what I love about it. It's all natural. And what they're trying to say is, well, once it leaves the body, and if you add any medications to it or anticoagulants or anything to manipulate it, well, then it may fall under another jurisdiction, in FDA of the biologics division, and also that could be up for them owning it, and that's what scares me is like how can you patent someone's blood? But they have patented one of the lawsuits I was involved with that the government set up against me in the early years was they went and bought this silly patent with mixing blood and vitamin C together and then putting it on a wound. And they sued me for that. And it was horrendous because I was never mixing blood with vitamin C ever. But they knew how much money I had in the account. They knew if they kept, suing me that I'll just run out of money and, take whatever they had to offer, whatever they had to offer. And that's what I did.
Well, we'll talk. We'll talk about that after the break. I got to jump in right here and get this break in. Our guest tonight is Emery Smith. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Emery Smith. And our conversation is about what Emery was doing in regenerative medicine, which continues to this day, by the way. But back when the FDA 510K approval for that centrifuge, I want you to explain what a 510K is and why that was so important.
Yeah, what a FDA 510K is basically a certificate for the device manufacturer to sell a product that has been tested that's safe and effective to be used on humans and animals. There's it usually falls under the same category, but I know they're changing things now. And that allows someone, because this is like an implant. This is not a regular test tube that I invented, because the test tube part has to be able to withstand and keep the cells viable and then put them back in the body. A regular test tube, like one that's made out of glass, for instance, would kind of destroy this process because glass, believe it or not, activates blood and makes it clot immediately. So we had to write up a protocol, and we have to do lots of stringent testing on the polycarbonate plastics that we use, because once you take blood out of the body, you want to keep it from touching the air. So it's a completely enclosed system. So the blood really doesn't come in contact with the air. And after that process, we deliver it back into the patient. So there's very or little damage to any of the cells, which we call, hemolyzing the cells during the centrifuge process. And that was just, doing algorithms and ratios based on the diameter and circumference of the actual rotor and the buckets that are in there to hold the tube, and finding out the density of every cell that you have in the blood, and then measuring that and putting it under a certain amount of G-force for a certain amount of revolutions per minute. And then, after, years and years and years of testing, we've really fine-tuned it. And that's what this amazing patent is about this centrifuge tube assembly that allows us to take blood, keep it from being contaminated in the air or by people, and then having it reintroduced into the body like a surgical implant.
Now, it sounds to me like there was a lot of money floating around here, that there was profits. It is the medical industry as well. Did you profit from this? Are you profiting from it today, or is somebody else making money off of this technology?
Yes, I mean, it's a huge profit markup. It's a very lucrative. A device manufacturer is very lucrative because we find distributors that are already out there and sign licenses with them for us to distribute the product. And it's a great markup. And at the same time, it reduces surgery. So this might be an avenue for someone who needs surgery, but we're going to try this out first before we do surgery because it's cheaper, more cost effective for the patient, and there's no downtime with infusions and injections. You're usually out within the same day, within the same couple hours sometimes. One of the big problems I had with the orthopedic surgeons in the early days was trying to convince them that, when they do a total knee down in South Florida, I know they get, $2,500, $3,500 at the time for that total knee. And that patient is, pretty much needs a physician assistant to follow up with them all week and physical therapy. So I basically told them, well, for the cost of, what they had to put down anyway for their insurance up front, that they would be able to pay for this procedure cash. And then it was like, well, we want to hear more what you have to say. But at the beginning, it was like, get out of our clinic. You're going to kill our total knee business because that's how we make money. We don't want something that's going to interfere with that. But once they found out a way to make money off it and a way that they can incorporate it into their medical protocols for that surgeon, people started seeing results. And if it did not, prevent the surgery, at least it, prevented the surgery from happening sooner. So maybe it prolonged them from having surgery, which is really important to a lot of people who are still working, especially construction workers and active people like police officers and the fire department. Any type of active job, you want to get back into that job. You don't want a lot of downtime. So this really helped out with that.
Now, your lifestyle changed, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, definitely. I wasn't making that much money in the Air Force, as you know. When I got out to go take care of my family back down in Fort Myers, I just got a surgical first assist job at the Lee Memorial Health Systems there, and then hooked up with a couple of great guys that were down there that wanted to start another business and work through them to make this all happen. And it wasn't until maybe 10 years after that we started seeing like huge profits, making a lot of money. The company now is worth, $165 million or more. I was benefiting. I was living the high life. I went from, rags to riches pretty quick and, had homes all around the U.S. and a dozen cars and was doing quite well. And then there was a big shutdown of the project, and a big lawsuit entailed, and they knew how much money I had, and I initiated this lawsuit, but they knew that I would run out of money because I wasn't smart enough to know I'm not a lawyer. I wasn't smart enough to know that I took the wrong route in handling this. So of course I lost everything. And the reason I was making a lot of money off this company, a few million a year personally, but that was funding. The reason I did that was funding my free energy lab that I had for 7 years.
And that allowed you, and again, for clarification here, because there's a few different phases in your life. Certainly, free energy, the ET question, Dr. Greer, Stephen Greer, and CSETI, all of this was on the horizon. And so you were able to use what money you had left to go into CSETI and build a laboratory over there and start to investigate UFOs, right?
Well, I didn't build anything for CSETI. I was just their vice president and their financial officer for the movie Cirrus. And I volunteered for them, for many years. Never, got a paycheck or anything like that. I don't think people are aware that I was just a volunteer. I was wealthy enough to be a volunteer and help them out, and give my time and money and effort into them. And it was a great organization at that time. And so that kind of was where it all kind of stemmed from. But I did not make any laboratory for them. I had my own private laboratory with a couple of scientists that no one knew about except the people that were involved.
The staying on the UFO part of this and the extraterrestrial side of it, when you went over to CSETI, were they aware? Was Dr. Greer aware of the tissue work that you had done back in the Air Force and your, I'd say UFO extraterrestrial background? Was he aware of any of that?
Steve was not aware of my extraterrestrial background in the military. He was aware of my medical accomplishments. That's why he chose me to do the tissue harvesting from the Atacama being, not anyone else. He made that command decision. I had access, of course, to sterile equipment and DNA harvesting kits and things like this that we needed for the mission. And I'm not sure why he chose me. I think I know why, because he probably had heads up. We were definitely having a lot of contact, him and I, during the years of CSETI. That was a little bit more active than normal, he would say, with me coming on board. And we had a lot of really great moments out there in the field where he knew that I knew telepathy. I mean, he knew some things, some abilities that I had and that he had too, and that stood out from the crowd. And I think that's why I went up in the rank so quickly after going to just a few sessions, a few missions with Steve, that, they offered me a position to come help out with security was the first thing. And I know people are out there saying, oh, that's Steve's bodyguard, but there's a lot going on in the background, like that you guys didn't know about. A lot of people don't know that that's me on Cirrus, collecting the DNA because they don't show my face. And that was part of keeping me kind of in the secret, in the background there, to be utilized for things like this. But, I had to come forward a few years ago because of the energy device.
Now, we'll get back into the energy device in a second, but I'm very curious as to you guys going out in the field. I'm talking about Dr. Greer and what you were exposed to. What were you guys seeing out there? Were you doing sky watches? Did you make any contact? Did you see any beings?
Constant contact. I mean, you can go check our at the World Puja radio place. He goes on there and we talk about our missions. Usually after an expedition, a week later. But we had phenomenal amounts of. I've taken a phenomenal amount of photography for them, capturing a lot of these beings. During the CE5 expeditions, we had many craft come up on the beach, many craft directly above us, many extraterrestrials within, a few feet of us were communicating. There's a few times where we did some astral projection meditations where we were making contact in the mind and using telepathy, where him and I could actually talk to each other at the same time, vector these ETs in and establish like an ambassador type meeting. Really phantasmical. I know it sounds pretty out there, but it's true. It's real stuff. And these ETs are there, and he's come up with an amazing protocol to bring these in. I was really interested to see what the civilians were doing. And also, I missed the camaraderie. I missed the mission-oriented things. And, he's a very mission-oriented guy. So I like that, that leadership about him. So we had it was really a great time out there. And,
well, hold on.
I was just there for that.
Yeah, let me jump in. You just said that there were ET beings a few feet from you? I mean, was this something physical? Was it interdimensional? What do you mean there were ET beings a few feet from you? What were you saying?
Yes, ETs can come in many different forms. So they can holographically, show themselves, but they're, out past Saturn or in our exoatmosphere, cloaked. So they can actually show themselves without being harmed. And they'll just say their holographic imaging is really a lot better than ours. And they can communicate that way. They can communicate interdimensionally, which means it's non-local. So they bilocate. So they could be somewhere and also have a presence on Earth, even though they're behind the moon. And then you have like three-dimensional physical landings where there's beings that actually come out of these craft and, hike on over. Sometimes they don't land right there in the circle, but a little bit of ways away, and then they come marching in. And we had this happen in France. And this is all documented stuff with cameras and videos. And I don't know if Steve has released a lot of this. I haven't been following, but I know that it's real, and we have amazing contact. And being interdimensional also means that the being also could be the craft, and the craft could be just a spark in the air in front of you. And I'm most noted for taking the light being picture, which is pretty famous out there. And the U.S. Navy said that it was the best picture a civilian has ever taken. And what they didn't know, because the picture was leaked to the U.S. Navy without our permission, that it was me that took the picture, which they probably found out later.
What describe this image?
Yeah, this image is of a beautiful light. It kind of looks like a lens flare in a way, but it's not a lens flare. And so people know when you take pictures and you see dots or you see lens flares or colors, that's also a way that ETs communicate safely through electronics. They can kind of reprogram them to give messages, either through sound or through photons in images and on pictures and on digital cameras. Especially the older digital cameras pick up on them a little bit better. And so this being basically is kind of a teardrop type being. I have a lot of pictures of this being, of similar beings like this. And I had one of my friends. Hold on a second here.
Okay.
So I'm going to take a picture of it, and I'm going to send it to you right now. And I got somebody working on that, and you guys can see this picture of this beautiful being. It's this teardrop type of being. It's hard to explain, but it has this beautiful rainbow halo around it. You can see the head, you can see the heart chakra. You can kind of see the etheric field in this being. So it's a very majestic looking picture. And I had a friend paint me a beautiful picture of this original. So they took acrylic paint and they made this beautiful picture. And it's always behind me when I do interviews sometimes at the office, and people are always asking me, what is that behind you in that picture? And it's this beautiful light being, and we have dozens of photos in different places around the planet of this similar being. So I'll send. What we did is we made little posters out of it, of the acrylic painting picture that my friend painted, and we're going to have those available for people to purchase. And we're going to take a picture of it right now. Just text it to you, Jimmy.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm trying to see what you're looking at, and then the people will kind of understand, exactly what this looks like. And this is the artist rendition of the being, and then we're going to put the original up later this year. And we have dozens of these beings on film, even up till just recently, and they come in a form of light. Now that light means in another dimension they might make another form. So when they come into this dimension, they have many forms when they're transdimensional, interdimensional beings, because they can change the way they look. They can become 3D. They can look like a light. They can look like a ghost. They can look like almost anything they want because they're not from this dimension. Now, if you, Jimmy, went back into the 2D, you'd just be a big flat Jimmy. I'll be a flat Emery.
Right.
So imagine something that is 4, 5, 6D coming back into this dimension will definitely look different. We would look different if we went into another dimension or if we came back into a different dimension. We'd have a different physical appearance.
That's right. Yeah, there's the other aspect of this when you were looking at these beings on the beach, right, that were a few feet from you, and you're looking. Do you recognize what kind of species you're looking at, and do you have any idea about how many different civilizations may be visiting us? Like right now. That's the big question that I have. We talk about greys, or we talk about Nordics and mantis beings and reptilians. I think those are all generalized statements. When we have 100 billion planets just within reach of us here in the Milky Way, there must be huge amounts of different civilizations visiting us. Do you have any idea what that number is?
Well, it's an unlimited amount of number, because think of it this way, everyone. Like when you're looking at Earth and all the species on Earth, not just humans, but all the species, that's a lot of different species. Even the different races in being human. Look how many there are, and all those races intermingle, guys. So with my studies through looking at genetics and DNA of these beings, the most profound thing I found out was that they have human DNA, our DNA, and we have different percentages of their DNA. So what I'm saying is, out there in the universe, there's a lot of intermingling going on, just like here on planet Earth, and it doesn't matter if it's a gray and a reptoid. They might be 5% human, 45% Arcturian and 50% reptoid. So there is a lot of intermingling we're starting to find out is going on out there. So the species are pretty unlimited in numbers, and the different star systems. Like, it's weird if someone says, well, I'm from Ceres, and I'm like, well, that's just a star system that has, thousands of planets. So I don't think people really look at it that way, because the universe is so vast. And I had a great experience up there at the Shambhala Monastery getting access to their giant telescope, which we can now, we're going to do a live stream on that one day, where I'm going to take you into the universe, live streaming it on your big screen, and I'm going to show you all the star systems and all the nebulas. And that shows you a little bit more. So there's unlimited species out there, Jimmy, that are around the universe in this dimension.
The DNA on this planet, it doesn't matter what you're looking at, the construction of everything is based on the same 20 amino acids, which must be common throughout the Milky Way, right? And those basic building blocks, which are constructing DNA, they must be similar, just because of the nature of chemistry and those amino acids and how DNA would be constructed, right?
Yes, that's correct. We just have we have some gaps in ours, but we're just not a fully activated species yet, I'll say. But we're moving in that direction.
The going back to those beings, the first part of that question was, I'm talking about on the beach, that you said were a few feet from you. Mm-hmm. My question was, were they physical, and what did they look like?
Yeah, we do have a picture of that somewhere. I'll have to find it and send it in. What it looked like is, we have a group of like 50 people out there, and a craft came up, and this is down in southern Florida. And we were on the Gulf of Mexico side. And there was a craft. We have all this amazing lights were blinking as we were doing the CE5 protocols after we did the puja. And all these scintillating lights were across the bay against the mangroves, and on the other side of the mangroves is the Gulf of Mexico. So first it became very electrostatic, and that was the first feeling everyone was feeling. And the next thing we saw in the field was, which is only maybe, 75 feet away, was all these really bright lights. And at first, of course, the mind wants to say, oh, those are just lightning bugs. And but there was definitely no lightning bugs out at that time. And I remember Stephen stood up and walked out of the circle, and I followed him right behind him with the camera. And to our amazement, these lights, these glowing tennis ball-sized lights, golf ball to tennis ball-sized lights that were really bright but not burning your eye, were fluctuating in and out. And there was a dozen of them in this little grassy knoll. And what happened was he started walking into the grass, and they started starting to come towards him. And then I called the entire group over because it was just too amazing that they're still staying here, which means the group was really cohesive in frequency. And they all walked up, and it was people think you're ready to see an ET, but when those lights started forming into the small little bodies, which looked maybe a foot to 2 feet tall, very oblong, very ectomorphic. They were a bluish gray species that people started actually passing out. They were walking up to the grass line, but they weren't going further. And the lights came right up to them. These beings started to manifest and show their true form. And people actually started passing out because it was so overwhelming with energy and love. And just, it was a very emotional time for a lot of people to see this. And then we stayed out there and had some telepathy and some communication and some downloads. And it all was over within, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes for that part of the night. The rest of the night was just amazing craft were coming above us, so much that 2 Black Hawk helicopters came in and buzzed us, and then, it kind of ruined the night once they come. But it's great confirmation when we're doing these CE5s and the military craft come in and try to break us up.
Fascinating. I've seen some of the video of that night too, and it's pretty incredible. Let's take a break right here, Emery. I'm going to get you to hang on. We're not quite ready to end this conversation tonight. Let's do some overtime. Our guest tonight, Emery Smith. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night is Fader Night, open lines all night long on the Game Changer Network and KGRA. The Planet will be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Emery Smith. Fascinating conversation tonight. We've covered just about everything, and going through some of these CE5 call-ins with Dr. Greer are fascinating. And, I've seen some of his videos over the years, and I'm very impressed with it. And some of it is nearly identical to some of the things that I've experienced, too, with groups of people. So we know that there is something going on, which brings me around to the obvious question, which is disclosure, right? Everybody wants it and wants it now. Is there a timetable? If you had a crystal ball, Emery, what disclosure really is, and how long is this going to take until we can close the door on this?
Yeah, I mean, I really believe that disclosure is happening every day. I know it's you have to be patient. The fact that they're releasing new technologies and new materials out there is a good sign that pretty soon people are going to be looking at this saying, how did you make this? How did you get this? We're just not smart enough to do this. I do believe that Antarctica will show a lot once it's melted, just like you saw that face, it could be just some ice. I have to be skeptical on everything I see down there because you just never know what kind of agenda they're rolling. Because of what I've just heard recently in D.C., it looks like a 5-year kind of release, but they don't have 5 years to release it because the public's going to know about it, I think, within the next year. So I'm hoping for that. I'm just hoping that the civilians take charge and, start getting some of these raw data in and photographs and videos that's undeniable. I believe that people are standing up and being more educated on this, and the acceptance of it, of course, is overwhelming by the media now. Like you said earlier, there's never been more media coverage than there is right now, which is a great sign. It looks like the government does want to move forward with some agenda to prove that ETs do exist. I don't know if that's good or bad and how that will affect us. I do not have my own opinion on a timeline. I mean, I have my own opinion, that hopefully, that it should be within the next 1 to 5 years. But like I said, Earth doesn't have that much time. We need to get this technology out now. We need to reverse engineer it, and it already is done. But if they need time, and I'm saying this out loud because I know they're listening, if they need time, I think that's okay. But they shouldn't sit on this for more than a year. They need to really get on the ball here and start to let the Earth people know that this is real and that there are extraterrestrials there. Yes, they have technology that could really help us, but we do have to go through certain things as a society to bring us together, and some of these might be catastrophic events as well to bring us together, so we won't be so hurtful to each other. So we really need this to change the conscious level of everyone during this time, and I think it's happening. I just think there's more and more, people coming on board. I see the effects on, the letters we get and the emails we get, and I thank all of you guys for that because they're really good questions, and a lot of people are volunteering to step up and to, speak out. And I think the more insiders that come forward, please contact me if you are one. To get your information and story out, because it really is important that the more people we have come forward, the more disclosure that happens. So I think it's going to be over time. The Earth needs it to be done now. Hopefully it'll be done within the next year or so.
How much do we trust Washington and the Pentagon with disclosure? I mean, they have spent decades ridiculing and teasing this community and laughing at it, and now we're supposed to be in this friendship mode. How much do we trust Washington with what they're doing?
Well, Washington is really controlled also by the major corporations. They kind of just do what they have to do. I know people think the president and all the people can just, they're political, and kings and queens can just go and do whatever, but they really can't. They need our help for sure. They would be immediately terminated if they were to mess up. So they're really being careful of how they move forward with this and who's responsible for the cover-up too. And I think people are going to want some answers, so they're trying to make that agenda now.
Well, that's pretty obvious. But then there's the other side of it, Emery, which I think members of this community absolutely have to, will not accept anything less than the government handling the disclosure aspect, and having the president disclose on live TV that this has been going on and that there's been a cover-up. And so we have a double-edged sword. You'll trust the government to say that, but you don't trust the government to handle disclosure. But the only way that you will accept it is if it comes out of Washington. It's kind of a paradox as I see it.
Yeah, I mean, they're backpedaling because I don't think they expected Antarctica to melt so quickly. I don't think they were going to have, information leak out like these photos and videos. So they are definitely preparing some sort of agenda. I don't know how that's going to be for us and what that's going to look like. I just know there is definitely talk about it, and they are working on something to release to the people of the planet because they have to. They are on a timeline. I don't know what that timeline is, but I know it's less than 5 years. And I don't know who came up with that number. It was just brought up.
What's the latest on your Unity device?
Well, it's been validated. I can't really talk about it. I'm still kind of NDA on that. I do talk about it like to some one-on-one people, at the meetings and things, but I can't really get too much into it. Hopefully this is going to be brought to the world as far as it being an operative system next year publicly. So stay tuned. It's great news for all of us and for everyone. And hopefully next year by this time, you've already have seen it functioned.
But is it, does it fall under the perpetual motion category that, it's not going to get patented or it's going to get poo-pooed, by the patent office? Does it fall under that? Yeah.
Yeah, that is a big problem. And there's many modifications made to this device, and that's all I can say right now.
Well, what I'm suggesting here is that the complication? Does it fall under that category, or is it something else?
Right. The group that I handed over to is very conscious, and it's not about money. It's about getting this, out to the public the right way, working with lead scientists around the world and political governments, and of course the corporations to, work together, instead of just dropping a bomb on someone, because the amount of energy that these devices make also can be used for bad things. So that's really the holdup, is trying to, have a way to control that. And I thought a great way would be to at least have, a scalable size device hooked up to the power plants, so we can still be on grid, we can still pay our electric bill. Who cares? Because at least the energy will be clean, and we can clean up the atmosphere, and then also use these devices and make other devices to help clean up the oceans. Because when you talk about over unity and talking about the physics and the energy behind that, you can actually transmute garbage in the oceans and bacteria and viruses, all sorts of amazing healing things for the planet and people, not just the energy aspect of getting this energy from around the world, which would give us, clean water everywhere around the planet. And also that would help out with crops and really heal, the people of Earth first and the planet before doing anything else too wild.
Is it scalable? I mean, can it be the size of a cell phone, and can it be, much larger and power cities?
I mean, definitely it's sizable to fit in the back of a car, and also sizable enough to power an entire city. That's not a problem. The energy is all there. It's just how we choose to store it, how we choose to utilize it, where the excess energy goes, because it's an unlimited amount of energy, Jimmy.
Where does it have energy going into it? Does it plug in the wall?
No. It pulls out the energy from within time and space, but I can't get into the mechanics of it, of course, right now until next year.
Very interesting. I've got a bunch of questions here that keep coming in from the audience. And this is from Sarah Ann. She says, clarify this, please. So is there a sense of the rainbow light beings versus rainbow light brings versus benevolent ETs manifesting during Greer protocols? Give the good guys a chance to be known as legit. Is there a mix of both?
It can happen. It's rare, but it can happen where there are entities that are there. A lot of these entities, however, are in the classified projects, the shadow agents that are using very high-tech equipment to come and disrupt the CE5s. They're using energetic beam weapons and scalar photometry as well to mind control people, and to also short-circuit people's neurological systems so they can't focus, or they get sick and have to leave, which breaks the continuity of the team when doing CE5 protocols. So there are there is a possibility for negative energies and entities to be in these places because of the contact work we're doing. And, this person's mentioning the rainbow light, which is just another form of different kinds of entities that give off light. And, there are, so much light among us that we will conquer this. I mean, this is going to be an easy thing as far as time and us being here at this magnificent time, because we're forever beings.
I wanted to ask you about, and this just popped up. This is just really funny. DARPA's tweet last week where they were asking for underground facilities so they could do research projects. What was going on with that?
Well, the facilities over at Los Alamos underground and Kirtland are all full. So I don't think they can expand anymore. And there's, of course, facilities everywhere in almost every state and around the world. So I think what they're doing is to save money. There's a lot of abandoned underground facilities that can be expanded. So they're looking, for that. You have to understand, too, like, the other thing I want to clear up is I never worked for Sandia Labs or Los Alamos. I worked in their underground facilities that were rented out by, huge corporations that had to do with aerospace and biotech.
But what would they need these underground facilities for? What are they researching?
Oh, my goodness. Anything with aerospace, anything with biologics, such as, hybridization, growing of tissues, 3D printing of bodies, consciousness-assisted technologies that they have reverse engineered from extraterrestrial craft, a lot of reverse engineering stuff, a lot of materials being made utilizing materials that we have collected from space and downcraft and extraterrestrial DNA. There's a big exchange going on behind the scenes of extraterrestrial DNA within the projects. So they're also, making amazing spacecraft that are anti-gravitic. We've had it forever. They're just fine-tuning things and coming out, just like we come out with new aircraft, every year, Boeing. The same thing is going on underground in projects. Think of it as a whole nother world, but just, 1,000 years more advanced, that, has technologies and has the money to develop viruses that make us sick and also create a pill that cures that virus. So there's a lot of good things coming out of it and a lot of bad things also that could be utilized. But there's also a lot of weapons and things like this being made that far exceeds a bullet or a nuclear bomb, I can assure you.
And DARPA would be doing this kind of research underneath our own cities?
Yes.
That's pretty scary. I can't let you get away without bringing up Storm Area 51. This is September 4th, scheduled for September 20th, which is in 16 days. It'll be 15 days here very shortly. You served in the Air Force. I'm sure you're familiar with the security that would be surrounding Area 51. Is this a good idea?
This is a really bad idea, guys. I think it's great that there's that many people that want to do it. I think that shows a lot, but I don't think gathering 1 million of us up and going out into the extremely harsh conditions of that desert, and of course they're going to have the roads blocked another 50 miles before you even get there, and there's no toilets, there's no water, 1 million people on a 1-lane highway out there is just not going to work. People are going to be getting sick. I think, I could name 10 other places you should storm that you're definitely going to find something besides that place, because that's a really put in a position on purpose. So if something like this happened, that they would easily deter you, not only with tear gas, but also using special harmonic disrupting frequencies that will bring you right down to your knees. You're just going to want to get out of the line of those harmonics, that sound vibration. They're going to be using bean bags, in their guns. These things, there's a lot of technology they're going to use that's going to make it very uncomfortable in an already very uncomfortable place. And I was going to go there maybe 3 or 4 days earlier and maybe do a live broadcast and just kind of tell people about the conditions out here and to come prepared if you really are going to do this, because you're going to be alone out there, and it's not like the nearest store is right around the corner or the nearest restroom. So we really need to think this out. And I love it that all these people are so amped about it. Whether it's really going to happen, I don't know. But the last thing you want to do is storm any military installation. I think we should be a little bit more civilized. I think showing up, all these people, or at least with the numbers on the web, I think it's something that would definitely go down in history. I mean, this will be an epic moment. Whether it's going to happen or not, I don't know.
Yeah, if somebody shows up, what if it's the exact opposite? What if it's crickets on the 20th, that nobody shows up?
I know, right? Well, I think I'm sure there's going to be people show up. I don't know how many. I know people will definitely show up. I don't think it's going to be 1 million. I don't think that'd be wise just because of the conditions there. I think we should organize it a little bit better and actually, hold a big hearing or something to get the government to see, wow, there's 1 million people going to show up at this government facility, and it's going to get really awkward really fast.
Do you think that they would actually? Okay, there's two questions that I have. One, to allow the highway going out of Las Vegas to remain open, would they just close that down for a couple of days and just tell everybody to turn around?
If they saw an imminent gathering where it was going to be uncontrollable, it has to be uncontrollable, which, I know they're going to have a huge security force there out, just unbelievable. I think they would definitely, if they saw the cars piling up and the people getting rowdy, definitely they would shut down a major highway if it was a threat to, for people getting to that area.
Right. And what do you make of the other side of it, the capitalistic side of the United States, which there's always somebody out there trying to make a buck, right?
Well, that's why I just got all these emails, Jimmy, and then it's like, here, I survived Area 51. I'm storming Area 51 T-shirts and posters and stickers and keychains. It's already, people are buying this, the merchandise for something that, didn't happen yet. Which, like I said, will go down in history. If it does, it'll be one memorable moment that people will have something to hold on to, that keychain or that poster. It doesn't surprise me. I think, that's, I don't see any harm in them doing that. Of course, people are going to do that. People need to survive. They see this as a business opportunity to, go out there and sell their merch and make history, and have a piece of history to take home with them, that they survived this, this invasion.
Why don't you and I let's rent a van? We'll get a bunch of T-shirts printed, and we'll do a roadside stand out there on the extraterrestrial highway. I mean, because that's what we need to do. That's going to be happening, and then we have the suggestion of music events and that kind of thing, and that feels to me to be a little bit opportunistic. And what if nobody shows up? Right, and that's the other thing. You need to have the infrastructure if you're going to pull off some kind of event. You need to have facilities, medical facilities, bathrooms, water, food. All of this needs to be provided. You just can't expect to have 50,000 people taken care of. Or is it just going to be a couple of dozen? That's the thing.
Well, I think we still need to report it either way, because unless there's some giant press release that, you'll be arrested if you show up on Area 51 land, or if you take part in this, unless the government actually states something in the press, which would be unprecedented, would be pretty amazing, because that means they're worried that they can't handle it.
Yeah,
and
totally.
If that happens, yeah.
Now, do you think that the Air Force and their security and the military police would actually, if somebody made it up to the back gate, right, and that's a long road, right? That's a dozen or so miles through the desert to get to either gate. But if do you think that the military police, the Air Force police, would shoot on American citizens on American soil?
I think anyone going past the signs would be deterred first. I don't see them making it that far because they're already taking a lot of precautions right now, putting sensors in all the grounds around there, and testing up their security forces there already. So I think they're preparing for the worst, and I don't believe anyone would really get past that line because of the type of technology that they're using to disrupt the nervous system, because it makes it pretty unbearable. You literally will get very sick and fall to your knees, and you're not going to be able to walk a step. You're just going to, have to endure the pain or get out of the line of fire, which means the line of whatever energy weapon they're using to deter people from going there. And of course, you can bring gas masks and all that all you want. It's going to be an unpleasant sight. And if someone actually got to the gate, which I don't believe will ever happen, they would be terminated.
Yeah, this is my prediction. This is what I think. They're going to close down the highway at Alamo, right? Which is the last major town. Mm-hmm. And anything past that, there's only a couple of houses there. And unless you have a driver's license with your address on it that says you live by the black mailbox, you're not going to drive up that freeway on the 20th, maybe the 19th.
Nope.
They're just going to close that down unless it's just official traffic. But that's my prediction. I don't think that they're going to allow anything past Alamo.
No, I don't think so. The word I'm getting, which is secondhand information, is that they're going to be closing down that road, and no one's going to be able to get near it.
Thank you so much, Emery. And so really quick, I got about 90 seconds left. What is next? I know you're shooting this new docuseries, but what's up next?
Well, we've got the Patreon coming out, and I have this new show called Insider Report. That'll be out in the next 3 or 4 weeks, so take a look at that. Check out zerocross.co. That's our production company. You can kind of catch up on our new things that are happening, and the things that are coming up will be updated. And, of course, emerysmith.net. And then check out our new episodes on Gaia. You're going to love them.
Now, if anybody has any medical questions about your technology or what you're doing out there, where's the best way to reach you?
Well, of course, on emerysmith.net is the best place. There's an email there, emerysmith33@gmail.com. We have a couple people vetting that, especially for the medical people that need medical attention. So those questions kind of come to me first. And, we kind of put you in the right spot. We do have under contact, I think it's under contacts. One of the files on emerysmith.net has a few of the clinics that I recommend people to go to for these stem cell infusions, such as RegeneStem down in Miami, Florida, and Dr. Ghali at the Ghali Clinic in Torrance, and Dr. Brian Lemper in Las Vegas. These are some of the docs that I recommend you guys check out that are using this type of technology to its fullest.
Thank you so much, Emery. Be safe out there. Give my best to Olivia, and we'll be seeing each other soon. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jimmy, for having me. Take care.
Great conversation. Emery Smith. Now, emerysmith.net. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Thank you so much, Emery. Great conversation tonight. I think we covered just about every angle, and I just enjoy talking with Emery. And thank you for that. Tomorrow night, it's going to go down. First time in a month, Fader night with open lines all night long. It is my favorite night of the week, and I've been deprived of it. And finally, tomorrow night, we'll be able to take phone calls. It's going to be great. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camurian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Thank you, Drew. Amazing work on the new site. Music is Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2019 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Emery at EmerySmith33 on Twitter. Until tomorrow night, I want everybody to be safe. Go Beckley Tepe.